If you want to get a good grade in high school, this is the video that you need.
I'm currently a grade 10 student in a half public, half private school in Canada, and I got awarded the highest academic average in grade 9 with the average of 99%, and I'm currently having a 98.6 overall average in my grade 10 year. This is not because that I am smart. It is really because that I know how to get a good grade. Because having a good grade and being smart is completely different. Getting a good grade or getting a bad grade doesn't say anything to who you are. So if you're self-conscious about yourself because your grade, please don't. It doesn't mean anything about you. And this video is only for those who wants to get a good grade in high school. And I'm just gonna share some tips that helps me to achieve that. It might not always work for you, but it's definitely worth a try. First, let's talk about time management. And hold up, I am not gonna share how to not procrastinate because I am a 100% procrastinator. I save all my homework to the end and it's a really bad habit, but I am not gonna say that because you procrastinate, you will not get a good grade. That is not the truth. Well, obviously, if you can not procrastinate, don't procrastinate. But here's the way to work around procrastination, just make it useful as well. I procrastinate, but I always get it done at the end. This is about knowing how much time you need to finish this assignment. And honestly, coming closer to the deadline is actually a motivation itself to tell you that you gotta get this done. So I always use this as a motivation. When I get my homework, I don't necessarily finish them as early as possible, but I know when I have to start working. For example, if I have an essay due in 4 days, I know that I'm a slow writer. I need to start right now. But then some people I know, they will start 2 days before and they will still be fine. So it's really knowing where you have to start and make sure that you do start when you have to start. And sometimes what I do is I break it down into tinier chunks. For example, essay, I start by outline, first draft, second draft, final drafts, knowing how much time will each section take me, and I will plan out enough time for each section. Some people work better in the morning, some people work better in the night, and you just gotta know which type you are, because if the essay is due midnight and you are a morning person, so you want to make sure that you finish the essay in that morning, or if you know that you have something due the next day in the first period and you're a night person, you don't want to leave it to the morning to finish it because you know that you won't actually get it done. I'm gonna talk about assignment rubrics and study guides. They are your best friends and please take advantage of them. Before you do the assignments, always go through the rubric. Make sure that you do exactly according to the rubric. Teachers are not perfect, right? They also make mistakes. The rubric is your best friend when you want to argue for your marks. I always argue for my marks, obviously in a polite way, but don't be thinking like, oh, I got a mark off, okay. Actually look into it. Which part of the rubric did it got marked off? And if you think that you did that part right, you can bring the rubric, bring your work to the teacher and be like, hey, can I know why I got this mark off? Be absolutely respectful and smart with your word choice and communication, but you are definitely welcome to talk to the teacher when you are confused about your marks. For example, there was one time that I had to write an essay for not an English course. I think it was financial literacy course. So I got marks off for grammar, but the reason of the marks off is not because of an actual grammar issue like spelling, punctuation, sentence structure, stuff like that, but it is more like a tone issue where my word choice is not as strong, but that is not exactly part of the rubric. So I brought my rubric and my work with me and I went to the teacher.
You marked me wrong with my word choice, but it's not actually in the rubric.
And my teacher basically said to me, if it says the word mechanics in his rubric, he will not give me the mark, but if it says grammar on the rubric, he will. So then on the rubric, it says grammar. So that's how I got the mark back. So this is just a little hack where most people are scared of talking to teachers about your marks. But seriously, teachers are so nice and they don't hope that you get a good mark. Bad mark. So take full advantage of your rubrics and make sure that you're not scared of arguing your marks when it comes to assignments that you think got mismarked. And next I'm going to talk about study guides. Same as rubrics, study guides are so important when it comes to exams. Make sure that you look through them, that you understand every concept in that study guide. And if you have time, dig deep into the details or expand the concept that the study guide provides. Some teacher, however, though, doesn't prepare a study guide, which is really sad, but it's not their job to give you a study guide. So when it comes to situations like this, I always call my friends and I will create a doc where everyone put their thoughts in and everyone put their different perspective on things, so we can all combine and make ourselves this study guide where we can see different perspectives, because there's a good chance that you forgot something but then your classmate remembers, or you remember something but then your classmate forgets. So it's really good to always communicate and help each other through tests and exams, especially with like English. When you're reading literature, usually you will have a different perspective than your classmates, but that's why it's so important to combine ideas and to make this study guide that everyone can use. So with my experience in high school, knowing just what's on the study guide is not enough. Make sure that you study even content that's outside of the study guide. Alright, third is learn from your mistakes. When you get a test or assignments back, don't move on, but see what you got wrong. Let's say if it's a math test, always check if it's a careless mistake or that you don't understand the content mistake. Because if it's not understanding the content, you gotta study the content, make sure that you understand it for next time. But then if it's a careless mistake, what I always do is that I remember these things I need to check. For example, if I'm doing a math test, I always check my signs in front of numbers because I always get that mixed up. And I always check my calculation, because when you know that you are more likely to get wrong on this aspect, check over and over it again. Just less chance for you to get it wrong next time. Right, 4 is to be creative. I know this kind of sounds weird because most school wants you to follow their rubric exactly. They don't want you to necessarily jump outside of the box when it comes to school's tests, right? But I am telling you, for assignments such as essays, projects, posters, presentation, they need creativity, and don't be afraid to jump outside of the box and think, what can I do to give my teacher a surprise? For example, for my essays, I always try to write something that other people might not see, because that is when your argument can be the strongest, because you're coming from such a weird angle towards whatever you're trying to prove. And that is something that can catch your teacher's attention. They will be like, oh, that's an interesting point. And even if you mess up otherwise, like grammar or like word choice, based on the content, usually the teacher will still give you a good mark because you really did think through what you're writing about. And when it comes to like projects like presentations, you can always be creative with it, because there's just so many ways to present, right? But you have to make sure that you always communicate with your teachers first before you want to do something that's a little bit crazy, because some teachers only prefer those slideshow professional presentations, but some teachers really prefer funny ones that can catch your audience attention. So always check with your teachers, but never be afraid to show them whenever you have some new ideas. And here's just a few extra tips that might help you with your grades. When a teacher doesn't explain a concept really clear, go to YouTube. Like, YouTube saved my life so many times, especially for science and history. They explain things so well. Search on the content that you need to review for and just seek for YouTube's help. I know sometimes it is stressful when teachers doesn't necessarily explain a concept super clear in a way that you can understand. And another method is to reteach what you learned, and that is so good with your brain, because when you're trying to tell someone something, it is automatically making sense in your brain when you're trying to teach someone else. For example, I always like helping my friends with questions, and it's a way of reviewing a concept myself. Before an exam, I would always take some time and just try to talk through everything or write down everything. Write down just take a little bit more time, and I don't necessarily like that. And lastly, sleep well, guys, especially before exams. Never want to sleep too late. And that's it for my tips on how to get a higher grade in high school. Don't worry if you're not getting a high grade. As long as you're trying your best, that is all that matters. But I hope that these tips would help. And if you have any questions or concerns, please comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.